Vom încheia în această notă cu o abordare antreprenorială. Va fi un panel interactiv care va fi moderat de o persoană foarte potrivită, Dragoș Păslaru, director general la GEA Consulting, Strategy and Consulting. De profesie economist, el este un susținător al antreprenoriatului și al inovării. Are mai multe proiecte pe aceste două zone. Dragoș, te invit să introduci panelul în această după-amiază. Mult succes!
Doamnelor și domnilor, Radu Vrânceanu! Felicitări, Radu, pentru panel! O să luăm o scurtă pauză, foarte scurtă, numai ca să cei care trebuie să plece din motive absolut obiective să plece și ceilalți să rămânem în continuare. Este un panel în care discutăm despre România ca și hub regional. Este vorba de modul în care ne setăm ambiția pentru perioada următoare. O să vă cer doar câteva clipe până când membrii panelului se vor așeza și cu adevărat cred că o să avem o discuție foarte interesantă în ora care urmează. Mulțumesc foarte mult că zăboviți în continuare în acest setting. Okay, so we should actually switch to English for this panel. We have distinguished speakers that are coming from quite an array of countries. Again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This panel that is going to be over a span of approximately 1 hour is actually focusing on Romania and its goal to become a technological hub. And this is actually very important because it's actually setting the ambition for the future. And I think that our panel today is very suited to tackle this topic from quite a few different perspectives. We are going to try to discuss a little bit about the macro perspective, that is to understand a little bit the sector dynamics and the perspectives of the IT and tech contribution towards the Romanian economy. We are going as well to discuss a little bit about the structure of this particular sector, because it's very important how to make it as a reference from outsourcing to programming that is independent and based on innovation. And also, we are going then to shift to the second discussion, which is on the micro level. What are the challenges that an IT company, an ITC company is facing in Romania? And here, the challenges are quite different. And after talking about the company level and the hubs, we're going to then shift to the territorial perspective, which is the involvement of the cities and what kind of cities do we need, what are the creative surroundings that ITC companies need to develop. And finally, last but not least, also looking at the time constraint, we are going to talk a little bit about the internationalization and the regional perspective. Now, very ambitious agenda. We have with us this afternoon, this evening, I was saying that an array of distinguished speakers with both experience, entrepreneurial experience, and support experience in the ITC sector. And we are covering actually all these 4 dimensions that I was referring. What is actually really important, if we are to kickstart with the macro dimension, is to understand a little bit, not that you are not aware of, what is actually behind this very nice branding that Romania ICT is growing for the last couple of years, and with really, really good perspective for the future. And I would like to kickstart a discussion with one of the speakers of this afternoon, who is not only a well-known entrepreneur, even serial entrepreneur, but also he has a crucial position in the ecosystem right now as president of the National Agency for Software. And I'm referring here, obviously, to Andrei Pitiș. Andrei, thank you very much for responding to the invitation. And I will sit down here and let's talk a little bit about what happened in the last couple of years at the industry level in Romania and what are the perspectives.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? So, according to the study that Anis has conducted with the help of Pierodan Consultants, the IT vertical, let's say, totaled about 2.42 billion euros last year, and with a growth of 13% year over year. The predictions going forward are still in the double digits in terms of growth. And right now, as it turns out, the export is predominant. So it's a 60-40% split on exports. So the internal market is 1 billion and the exports are 142.
Good. Now, this is raw data. Also, data from Eurostat suggests that if we take the overall creative industry sector in Romania, we have a growth which is quite important. We have 43% in between 2009 and 2013. 43%. And out of that, the biggest chunk is obviously programming and software. It is actually very clearly seen in statistics that Romania grows at a rate which is almost double the rate that we have in EU 27 these days. And I think that this is one of the few sectors, ladies and gentlemen, that Romania is actually producing the kind of convergence, catching up, and even exceeding what is happening at European level. How is this translating, Andrei, to what we feel inside the industry? Are we on the good track? Is it a sustainable movement? How sustainable is this growth? Can we actually keep at this accelerated pace?
Yeah, actually, the growth being linear, because it's pretty much 11 to 13% year on year, I think this is a growth that we can sustain. The question, I think, would be more like how can we increase, how can we accelerate the growth rather than just sustain it? And this is where innovation and moving towards creating intellectual property and creating products has something to say.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we are to talk about the structure, you were already hinting towards that. How much of what we are talking right now about the Romania's miracle in ICT is actually due to outsourcing activities, and how much did we manage to produce through domestic capital entrepreneurship and innovation and so on? I'm not referring necessarily on statistics, because these are actually difficult to provide. But what is the feeling from inside the industry and the association level, for instance?
Well, from the inside the industry, it feels that while outsourcing continues to grow at a normal rate, at a stable rate, the products business, let's say, the innovative companies, they grow at an accelerated rate. And if we were to compare today's situation with 5 years ago, we definitely have an exponential growth in that area. It's also due to the fact that 5 years ago there are not a lot of companies selling products outside of Romania, especially.
So these days, can we talk about critical mass of domestic entrepreneurs that know their challenge and are determined to get out of outsourcing? Or it's too early?
I don't think outsourcing is a bad thing to get out of. I mean, it's a business model that is harder to sustain, because in order to grow the business, you have to hire more people, and there's a lot of pressure. Hiring more people puts a lot of pressure on the market and increases the salaries. So then the business model of outsourcing becomes unsustainable, because with a bigger salary, then there's no outsourcing.
Yep, absolutely.
So because of that, I see a lot of companies that are trying to innovate and have a business model based also on products that you can, you build a software product once and you can sell it 1 million times without having to produce it 1 million times. Aside from that, I see a lot of startups starting from scratch, but also a lot of business owners in the software sector that are looking at other business models other than just the outsourcing models. So a lot of movement in this area.
Good. Excellent. Now, the developments that are happening in Romania are not unique on the globe. I mean, as much as we are proud Romanians thinking that this is unique to Romania, this is happening also in the region at a wider scale. And here we're going to introduce you another very relevant speaker for this topic. Marcin, you will be the one. Marcin Jabłoński is actually a very good connoisseur of the telecom and IT area. He's actually one of the critical factors in cluster development in ICT in Poland. And I think that you have actually witnessed in Poland similar developments. I mean, can you comment a little bit on this new wave of services led by ICT in our part of the world? I mean, can you see similarities from what you've heard from Andrei? What is your perspective, and how are you actually doing in Poland?
Bună seara, domnul voastră. I am very glad to be in Bucharest. I think that there is a lot of similarities between the Poland and Romanian. We have the same deregulated law in telecommunication. It means that, for example, we cooperate with about 2,000 telecommunication operators in Poland. 2,000. It's a small companies. It means also the same about the BPO. In Poland, the business process outsourcing model was very popular, especially for regional government, who supported to launching the BPO centers. But in fact, a lot of entrepreneurs discovered that being the outsourcer, it's a not good perspective for future. Why? Because if you work on low margin, you have no chance to pay big wages to your people, and it means the people will move to London or to UK or to Germany or to Sweden. That means we export our knowledge abroad. Mm-hmm. We counted with Professor Wrzecioniarz that the whole export of skills from Poland to Western countries, it's equal to whole Polish debt.
Okay.
It's the whole cost of the whole basic, secondary, university education. So our challenge is how to force people, not the companies, because the companies are people, force people to change their model of thinking and to attract them to create the high-value, global competitive projects. Mm-hmm. I work a few years with Karlskrona. It's a small place in Sweden. In 80s, there was only the smell of herrings. Right now, it is one of the telecommunication hotspot, Telecom City. And when I work with a director of Ericsson, he said to me, Marcin, we try to explore the education system and try to catch up the talented people and try to assess whether they are able to work in the corpo or not. Mm-hmm. So the question, what we'll do when the people are not able to work with corpo? So give to money to create the highly competitive products. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's why this is our task. I think the same in Poland and Romania.
Okay, so Andrei was actually hinting, and it was very correct, that we don't have necessarily a fight in between outsourcing and high value-added services, but we are talking at macro level about an upgrade of the economy. And you were very well positioned to actually mention the fact that by simply having the migration of skill abroad, there is a cost for the economy. So without trying to be nationalistic or too protective, there is an upgrade going on. Apart from this view that we are sharing in emerging countries like Romania and Poland, I think that it would be very good at this point to have the view of someone who is both a visionary and has led actually the revolution in the mobile and telecom world. We have the privilege of having Ralph Simon with us. Ralph is actually leading different high-growth startups, international global startups in the field for quite a number of years. Ralph, we are really privileged to have you here. What is your comment to see, when you are actually looking at the broad picture of what is happening in the ICT sector in Romania, in our case, obviously Poland as well?
First of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a real privilege to be in Bucharest, and I would just like to say one thing. Gândirea moderna românească este într-adevăr special. There's no question about that. And you know, people always say, well, things can't happen in Romania because we don't have enough geniuses. You don't need a genius. In fact, what you need is a genius. Does anyone know what a genius is compared to a genius? Because a genius can't exist without a genius. So a genius, S-E-N-E-I-U-S, is the scene. It's the scene where things happen. And maybe it's the scene that gets the genius to come up with an idea. I mean, let's face it. Yes, Bucharest is a very important city in Romania, but there are many other interesting hubs in Romania that have got some incredibly smart people. For example, Timișoara has actually produced the Minister of the Information Society here in Romania. Maybe he's a politician, so maybe he's not a technologist. But the point I'm trying to make is today, people are looking at a genius internationally. So there are people in London, people in Silicon Valley, people in Los Angeles, people in Berlin that are looking to work with people from Romania because there is some really interesting, smart innovators here in Romania. One of the reasons that I'm particularly interested in Romania, I met a company earlier today that have come up with an incredible application for cardiac surgeons and doctors that deals with the heart and mobile phones. My main interest is in everything to do with mobile, because mobile is the future, it's the present, it's everything, and especially mobile video. Development in mobile video and mobile in particular is really everything. And remember, 12 years ago, mobile money got its first global start. Does anyone know in which country it first started? It wasn't anyone from Europe. It wasn't anyone from the United States. It wasn't anyone from Canada. It wasn't anyone from the UK. It was in Nairobi, in Kenya, that mobile money first started 12 years ago. When the president of Apple, Tim Cook, 2 months ago said, Apple's iPhone 6 has now got mobile money, it was using the basis of what was developed in Nairobi in Kenya 12 years ago. So if something could be developed in Kenya, what has Kenya got? Elephants, lions, but great technology hub in Nairobi. The goal would be to find really good partnership connections between Romanian technology and technological brilliance and what goes on around the world. You know, what I think is interesting, let us say you wanted to start a soccer team, a football team here called Viitorul Constanta. Does anyone know that soccer team?
Yes.
Okay, maybe you have to be George Hagi to be that, to start something like that. But you don't. You can start and develop your technology soccer team with the brains that you have in Romania.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ralph. Just a quick macro question. How does Romania look on the map of ICT today? In just a phrase.
Well, it needs to punch above its weight. It needs to do more, because this year, 2015 so far, Romania has actually slipped a little bit in the EU table. It's, it's like the teacher that says, Dragos is a good student, but he needs to work harder.
Okay.
But the point is that there is great talent. I think that it needs to have a better coordination and a good way of developing things. We've seen this in London, where there's a group in London called Tech City that really develops young companies. If you can find a connective link with London or Berlin or Warsaw or in Poland, as my colleague here has just spoken about, and those connections are not difficult to find. Moscow is another important point. Anna, who's sitting here, gave a great talk a little earlier on with a company called Yandex in Russia, doing incredible stuff. So there are these links that you can get, and happy to meet with anybody afterwards to speak about that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, in order to wrap up a little bit, without having the pretension that we can actually finish the topic, on the macro level, I mean, obviously the ICT evolution that was grounded at micro level, and with the investment that happened through the multinational and so on, I mean, this is an easy thing to be hijacked by politicians, and to claim that this is the key sector together with the automotive, which is also doing quite well in Romania recently. But the question is, in order to have a sustainable development on the ICT sector for the future and transform Romania into a real tech hub, do we need different type of policies? Do we need public support? What kind of support do we need? Are we comfortable with what we have right now? Is just the good policy for the sector would be for the state to just stay away? Or do we need something more special? Andrei, I'm coming back to you. I'm reverting to you again on that one. Public sector.
Yeah, I'm personally not a big fan of of a big state, so I'm more in favor of a more nimble state and government that would remove, let's say, obstacles for entrepreneurs and help them succeed by not putting a lot of pressures on them. However, I think that the greater discussion, because you keep saying the macro level, I think the macro level here is that here in Europe we are fighting each other, and I think that the bigger fights are at another level, and I think that by fighting here in Europe between Romania, England, Poland, and all these countries that are on a certain, it's already a podium. I mean, you already know which is the biggest country, which is the smaller. I mean, I don't see any path in which Romania will be like the biggest country or the most wealthiest, At the level where the discussions are in Europe, I don't see a path to that. So, in my opinion, I think if we stop thinking of the nation state for a little while and start thinking of a big European conglomerate, then it's something that we can start building upon. As long as we continue to think at a national level, which is very small, and compete between ourselves, I think it's, in my opinion, is a dead end.
I think that this is one of the catchphrases of this afternoon session. So thank you very much, Andrei. That was really insightful. Setting up the ambition needs to oversee the national level. Otherwise, on a global scale, there is no purpose of talking about that. Very good. Now, in order to ensure this growth, this consolidation of Romania as a hub, I mean, of course, the public sector has its role, but I think that the most important part is actually the micro level, at the company level, where the entrepreneurs are active, where multinationals are coming and they actually have these positive spillovers with their investment. And in order to kickstart the discussion, I think there is no one in a better position to have an intervention on that than Cristiana. She is actually, she has many hats, all of them visionary and pioneering. She is actually linked also with the youth, which is actually the future of the talent and skills. She is also trying to connect people, and Device Hub is one of the platforms that she recently developed with her partners. And I think that it will be amazing from you to tell us a little bit of how it feels at grassroots level. What is your perspective of what is happening right now, has happened, and will happen in the near future in terms of this emergent movement of ICT? Cristiana.
Thank you, Dragos, for the introduction. I have joined the panel, as you said very well, transforming Romania into a regional tech hub, which means basically a change process. I mean, if we look in Romania, there have been like 25 years since the revolution, right? Have the mentality changed? I'm not sure about that. So when we are speaking about 20 years further in ITNC, well, we should really think about the example with the revolution. I think we should go for the young, for the first grade. We should go there and just tell them about innovation and just help them, I don't know, maybe starting with letting them do the poetry, not learning by heart a poem or anything like this. I think kids in first grade should have access to technology, and here are the big companies who should intervene, not maybe with more smartphones but I do have my nephews like playing on smartphones and just developing new stuff. I do remember my nephew was 3 years old when he was starting doing something with Lego. And at that point, he was like, you know, those guys don't know how to make any design, and they do just 10 of them, 10 models. And he was like, when I grew up, I'm going to send them a book with 20 more that I could found. So What I do believe is that first, IT&C sector is related to education and should start like yesterday. I mean, we should do something, and maybe parents and civil society should try to push it, like it happened in UK and other countries. And another thing is that I had the pleasure to speak with some clusters, for example, with some IT cluster in Cluj, and they also have a big problem with students leaving the university outside, abroad. They are going abroad.
Christiana, I mean, excellent points. You have hinted to some of the big challenges right now in the industry. You were hinting at the education challenge, the fact that, I mean, talent is directly correlated with education, and the talent pool, the skill pool, is actually correlated to that. And then, obviously, the challenge that we have with the human resources, human capital, generally speaking. So, part of the development, of the recent development, that led us at this point to talk about, you know, the acceleration of ICT growth in Romania was determined and based upon this talent pool. The fact that we have technical universities, people that are skilled in ICT and so on. A little bit earlier, I was asking Andrei Pitish about the sustainability of the process. Do we have enough resources in the pipeline to secure the growth of the sector if we are talking about, you know, well-educated, skilled people that are coming out of universities and of the school system? How do you see that from your grassroots perspective?
I think we do have the resources, but are we using it? I mean, we do have very smart teachers. We do have high-level research project on new funding. We do have big talents. Are we really using the resources? That's a question I can't ask.
Good. I mean, if any one of the members of the panel would like to enter and discuss a little bit this problem, this challenge, education, skills, talent, I mean, how can we secure that as one of the main assets? Ralph, you wanted to intervene, Marcin as well. Please, Ralph.
Yeah, I'll give you a good example. BlackBerry, now not a very popular mobile brand anymore, not very small market share globally, but where did BlackBerry start? BlackBerry started in a small town, 80 kilometers west of Toronto, and there is, its town is called Waterloo. Waterloo has a fantastic university that has a brilliant mathematics department that gets very, very, very good mathematics graduates. Microsoft hire from there. The founder of BlackBerry came out of that mathematics group and developed something. He was an entrepreneur and a technologist. I have to say, just what I'm seeing in Romania, not just in Bucharest, but in Cluj and in Timișoara, there is this groundswell of really smart people. It requires a mix with entrepreneurs and also, most importantly, with a VC funding structure, which clearly needs development here in Romania. I would love to be able to see something where you can get the Minister of the Information Society working together with something like the World Summit Awards in Salzburg in Austria to really develop a competition that gives prizes of connection of Romanian companies, startup companies. And there are some great startup development hubs already in Romania, but why should Bucharest or why should Romania be different from Berlin or even Helsinki? Just think of Angry Birds. They had 51 games that were failures before they hit with Angry Birds. Or Spotify. Who would have thought that Spotify, coming out of Sweden, is now the leading streaming company in the world, setting a whole new standard in terms of data? Can Romania do it? Of course it can do it. It needs to have people like yourself making sure that we get people in government to understand that the creative industries can grow GDP in Romania.
One follow-up, quick follow-up, Ralph, on that one. The example that you were actually given, there are success stories, and we all know about success stories. Each country has, you know, Skype with Estonia and so on and so forth. Are we talking here about a critical mass of, let's say, successful players that are less known, or are we talking about the importance of the lone wolves that are going global? Is this a choice, or I mean, how do you deal with that?
Okay, I'll give you a good example.
Yeah.
Why did Estonia create Skype? Small country, small number of people. The population of Estonia is almost slightly more than the city of Bucharest. And yet, it's 2 or 3 individuals that basically developed Skype. And of course, Skype is one of the most fascinating stories because Skype was sold twice. The first time without the source code, and the second time to Microsoft with the source code. And Nicholas Zenstrom, who was one of the main entrepreneurs, Swedish, working with Estonians, there was an interesting example of a genius, not a genius. Yes, there was one genius in Estonia, but the genius created the genius.
Good point. I think, okay, Marcin, and then Andrei as well. Yeah, please.
I think the Rav said a very important question. Our problem, I think the problem of countries like Romania and Poland is their large, their area. In Poland, a lot of entrepreneurs think that internal market is enough. And this is the big problem. When we work in Estonia, if we work in Sweden, the first question is to create the global competitive solutions. That's why, and that's why we are back to our entrepreneurs, how to convince them that from the very start they should act globally. Things locally, but act globally first. Second question is about the workforce. In Poland, we need now 50,000 IT specialists. 50,000. Why? Because 2 million of Poles are in the UK. Yes, this is the problem. Second biggest Polish city in the world is Chicago. Chicago is 2 million Poles. It means that we need also first the workforce. That's why with one of the biggest Polish telecommunication cluster, we start, for example, the first Polish competence center project done by the entrepreneurs for the entrepreneurs. Why? Because if we should wait for the national regulation in education, it will be done.
Okay, so no necessarily wait for the public policy, do it yourself.
Yes, but this is the problem. I think the most of the entrepreneurs in our countries, I think they're only waiting for support. If they want to work in some network cluster, they ask, what cluster will do for us?
Exactly. Yeah.
The first question, what should I do for a network to have some return from it?
Okay, Andrei, you wanted to add something, and then I will come back to the issue of cluster and cooperation. Yeah, Andrei.
I don't know how to say this. The idea is that we all know the success stories from Europe. Mostly they're like 1 or 2 per country, especially Skype in Estonia. Estonia had a very big governmental program to support startups after Skype was successful. That generated a lot of public problems because no other startup has gotten out of Estonia after that. So while there are a few outliers that end up in the US anyway being bought, at the European level, I saw papers indicating that Europe itself is looking at, the question is why 90% of the top 100 companies are in the US and not in Europe, technology companies. So that's why I said earlier, if we want to compete in this space, we shouldn't compete between ourselves. We need to find out what links us. So Romania has a lot of software programming talent. Poland has a lot of business acumen, and London has a lot of design and branding. So why not make companies that are from that combine the best strengths from each country and go forward in the global competition? That's not to say that any of you cannot be successful. I mean, I see a lot of entrepreneurs in the room that I know, and we now have programs. We have innovation labs that's at the student level. We have programs run at the Romanian American Foundation level to support entrepreneurs. And coming from Europe, actually coming from a country in Europe, is a little bit of help because nobody's expecting, and everybody tries to help you to do it. However, in order to sustain this globally going forward for the next 100 years, we need to work unite, and we need to be able to learn from each other, because I think that some of the most important countries, I think they have an attitude like they know it all a little bit, and I think that they should be open with the countries that joined recently. Maybe there are things that we can learn from each other and grow stronger going forward in the future.
I think that we should actually be very careful what Andrei is saying, because he's not talking from theory. I mean, his recent entrepreneurial endeavor was actually applying exactly that, going for talent across Europe to actually build his product. One important thing, Andrei, because I think that your answer to the challenge, the skill and education challenge, is actually also very important. How do you see the IT CE industry right now positioned in terms of responding to this challenge? Are you happy with what is happening? Shall we actually be concerned?
With what? Sorry, with what?
The skill and availability of human capital skills. And
I mean, there's a shortage of programmers worldwide, okay, and there will be always a pressure on that. I think we have a lot of very good skilled people here. We also are facing a lot of brain drain, especially to the US as well as other countries. And but I don't think that as a country you can tell somebody stay in my country. You cannot do that. I mean, come on, we're not living those ages anymore, I hope. So anybody will go where their potential will be valued the most, right? So if, let's say, our top technical talent goes to Silicon Valley, let's import some, I don't know, entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley in Romania. I launched this idea with the US Embassy, and it was a little bit of an interesting idea to, why not? I mean, let's import skills that we don't have here. Let's import, in Romania, we don't have a lot of entrepreneurial skills or, I don't know, or mindset. Mm-hmm. I understand Poland has a lot more, and London even more, but, like London maybe lacks programmers, and we have a lot of programmers. So let's put together entrepreneurs from London, with business people from Poland and software developers from Romania.
Quick follow-up on what we need as skills. One of the common things that I was actually having in all the discussions with entrepreneurs and even multinational representatives in the ITC sector was not necessarily complaint, but the fact that we don't have enough marketing skills or branding skills or the capacity to promote things abroad.
Let's import them. If we don't have them, we can build them. It will take 10 years. Let's start building them, and I agree with what Cristiana has said. So we need to start now from the first grade to build marketing and branding and all these commercial skills into the Romanian society. However, till we have them, let's buy them or import them and use them.
Good. That's actually a very good shortcut. Cristiana, I'm coming back to you with one of the significant things that is happening right now in the creative sector in the ICT field. I'm going to label it hubization. We have a lot of amazing hubs, be that PR, communication hubs like websites that are getting our platforms, but also maker spaces, co-working spaces, clusters, places and with people and services that are actually bringing everyone together. However, I will put my 5 cents on the table now. They are not cooperating that much. We have these initiatives which are scattered around Romania, obviously gathered mostly in the most important cities, but we don't see like esprit de corps, like a feeling that they need to be the elite of pushing something further. So how do you see that? You are actually representing one of the elite structures of this sort. Are we talking in Romania more about the lone wolves or about cooperation capacity and so on? How do you see that?
In 2008...
Cristiana first and then Marcin. Sorry for that.
No, it's good. You could.
Please.
So what I want to say first that yes, we do have a makerspace. Actually, DeviceHub.net was started from there. We founded that 5 years ago. As for my perspective, I went through Romania and met people in order to collaborate with them. So it's just my perspective once again, but I have met Radu Ticiu from Timișoara. Yes, we are collaborating together for hackathons. I went to Cluj to Roxana Rugina, and we have discussed about partnership here. We are also speaking with Irina from How to Web and so on. So I do believe, yes, I don't know how many others, let's say, makerspaces or hubs are coordinating or cooperating together. But I could say that from my perspective and from my team perspective, we kind of search to collaborate with as much as tech hubs and why not student leagues and even Polytechnic University, because collaboration and cooperation means in the end connections. I mean, you can ask something today and you might receive something that you need tomorrow. An important point was the VC. You are not, as a startup, it's very hard to find VC, and it's very hard to chase them, okay? Even to go for a 30 seconds elevator pitch. So you don't know who you are partnerships with, but this might help in future. I'm not sure hubs in Romania do collaborate as much as they should, but hey, this is a lesson to learn, and I think, yeah, things are trying to get there.
What is your perspective on the future of these hubs? I mean, are they going to play a critical role? How do you see a different development in the spectrum of support organizations? How do you feel the near future from this perspective?
So first of all, I think each hub has his own objectives, let's say. Part of the hubs have training lessons for startups, learning them how to pitch, how to market, what is a VC, and so on. Other hubs have the role to support development community. They just offer a space where developers can come and just develop. Other hubs just learn people about the market. But again, those skills should be taught in college, not, in hubs. And I'm not sure, yeah, we have them a lot in Bucharest. There are a lot of hubs, I can say 5 by heart. But I'm not sure we have a lot in, let's say, Constanța, where we have ships and the naval industry. And I'm not sure we have in Iași, let's say, where it's a big technical university. So yes, we do have hubs in Bucharest, Timișoara, and Cluj. But what about the rest of the country?
Good. Marcin, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, in 2008, there was very nice, from my point of view, the article Roberto Ferganti, Gary Pisano, what kind of collaboration is right for you? 2008. In 2008, they have seen that there is a huge problem about the management of knowledge. We live in the times of disruptive innovation. It means that a lot of technologies we are dealing with right now will be useful in 10 years or 10,000 years, maybe, yeah, maybe a little bit earlier. In 10 years, 5 years, it means that for a startups, it's a big problem. Why? Because their technologies shouldn't be applied, will not be applied in the 1 year, 2 years, maybe 3 years. So this is the whole problem. I think that the cooperation and competition. This is the nice word. Competition is the crucial point. We shouldn't stop compete. We must compete and cooperate at the same time. That's why the hubs are very important. But I go back to the point that if we treat the hubs, networks, cluster as a tools, we must teach people how this tool should be used. Other hand, there is no chance to get to achieve the high efficiency of such tools without smart members and smart users.
Mm-hmm. Good, excellent. Now, we still have about a quarter hour left. I think that one important perspective, now data is always fascinating. You know that in Romania, the creative sector last year, so 2014, is actually 7.7% of the gross value added. So it's the first time that it surpassed agriculture and construction. So if you are actually looking in the Romanian society, how much fuss we are actually making as a society on agriculture, on the real estate and construction and so on, and you look at the ICT, you see that I mean, we are still underdogs in this sector. What is actually important is to understand that even if Romania should be perceived as a hub, we are highly, let's say, divided within Romania. So basically, here was already mentioned that we have a couple of cities that are actually accounting for more than probably 90% of what we're talking about ICT activity. We have Bucharest with 47% of the industry. We have then Cluj with an amazing hike to up to 10%. It was like 3.2 in 2009 and 10% in 2014. And then the rest of the important cities like Timișoara, Brașov, Iași, which are like 3 point something, yeah? So Cluj actually is the, you know, the runner-up right now. And the other cities actually in terms of relative dynamics remain there. One of the important questions, and I'm addressing to you, Ralph, especially, is like, what does it take to a city to actually get there, get to be innovative and to welcome the ICT disruptive innovation? So please share with us your view.
Okay, so they say, by proof, there are 5 rules to becoming what you'd say here in Romania is oraș incubare.
Okay.
Right? So what do you do to make a city oraș incubare? You need 5 things. Number 1, you need large spaces. Number 2, low rents. Number 3, easy immigration, so someone from the EU can come into Romania. Number 4, you need good universities with mathematical departments so that you've got coding skills. And number 5, very, very, very important, you need a good DJ, EDM interest, electronic dance music, and DJs. And you think, what do DJs have to do with oraș incubare? Well, the reason is that geeks and techies like electronic dance music. If you look at Berlin, you look at Silicon Valley, you look at London, those 5 rules all apply. And I've got another suggestion for you, because you'd mentioned Israel, and you'd mentioned that Romania is not so good at marketing. Israel is not good at marketing. Israel is good at startups and good at getting VC money. But frankly, they rely a lot on getting their companies so good, like, for example, Waze, a fantastic traffic app, which was bought by Google for 1.2 billion, but they struggled for years to try and just be able to get that. So I've got one suggestion. The Israeli embassy here in Bucharest, go to the commercial attaché and say, we want to do a special Romania-Israel connection. Go to the British commercial attaché here in Bucharest, we want to have a creative industries connection. Go to the Finnish commercial attaché and the Austrian commercial attaché. Just those 4 countries, you would be able to establish something that then gets something going.
We're actually doing that, and especially with Israel and even with tech cities. So we have a connection with tech cities. So
tech cities important.
Anis, is welcoming also startups, but all of the IT companies that are members have access to direct connections with Israel, with London, with Vienna, and now with Brussels soon. So we have developed joint partnerships.
There's one other very important thing. At the end of May is a fantastic event for Central Europe, which happens in Vienna, called Pioneers. How many of you have actually heard of Pioneers? The Pioneers Future Tech. There we are. A fantastic event. They encourage startups from Romania, and they bring them into a system in Vienna that really gets fantastic. There were 2 companies in the last 4 weeks that had exits. One that was sold to Adidas for 200 million euros, and another one which was another big exit. All came out of being at Pioneers that have got the startup magnet for Central Europe. So that's another idea.
Yes. Good. I mean, it's not that you are saved by the bell. We started 10 minutes later, so we still have 9 minutes and 30 seconds left. I look here on the screen. What is actually quite interesting here is that I want to clarify with the distinguished members of the panel, do we need to be concerned that the ICT activity is so much clustered around a couple of cities? Shall we take it as a desire to spread it out across the country, or should we actually be comfortable with it because we have this density in a couple of towns? I mean, how do you see that? Because it's actually a part of the policy circles as well and entrepreneurial circles as well. We do have universities which are good in tech in other cities, but yeah, so how do you see that? Andrei?
I think you have to have the closeness to the good tech university. Mathematics and computer science is very, very important. And the biggest ones are in the cities that you've mentioned. I mean, this is, in my opinion, the key, yes.
Okay.
Access to talent, close access to talent from the university.
Good. Excellent. Ralph, any comment on that one?
I can only really echo what you've said because I think the most important thing is to just try and raise the fact that today it's the tech entrepreneurs. Young people want to be like Mark Zuckerberg. They don't want to be like Lars Ulrich from Metallica. Or maybe they want to be like David Guetta. But generally speaking, young people want to be able to be tech superstars. That's what their aspiration is. So how can you get the city, the government, the region to get behind something like that? So what you're doing here in this particular event is actually a very good way of having this as a gateway to show people that Romania is open for technology business.
Cristiana, how do you see this spread in Romania? You've actually traveled a lot, so you kind of know the intricacies of the regional development. So how do you see that?
I was just thinking first, as I'm a marketing person, what is the KPI for what is a good university? What are we measuring here? Okay, so what makes a university good to be good? Where they're recruiting the students from? Are they coming from IT high schools? Where are the high schools? So my point is that I think it's okay to have just a few good cities in ITC, and then just develop the other cities locally on whatever else competencies. But just to say something I've read earlier is that the European Commission says that in 10 years, 90% of the jobs will require IT skills, even if it's healthcare or anything else. So, hey, university and hey, high schools, please do read the European Commission reports and please do something about that.
Ralph, a follow-up.
There's a very good example from Ireland, from Dublin, a group called Code Dojo. I don't know if anyone here has heard of Code Dojo. It's aimed at teaching young people how to write code. It's suddenly taken off like crazy in many international countries. This is another way that you can get a local community involved at a young level, because really, let's face it, if young kids are getting their first smartphone at age 5 and they know how to swipe on a phone, you've got to have coding done from an early age.
Marcin, what is the experience in Poland with this concentration in big cities? Do you have a similar problem with just a few cities that are actually accumulating everything in ICT?
I think that Poland is quite a little bit different example, because the ICT was very popular from the start in Poland. But in fact, if we go back to the European Commission, we have the very important question is that ICT is a key enabling technology. It means that it's the same important like electricity, like water, like air. It means that I still go back to the beginning, the start, and I played chess for a long time. And when I was taught about the strategy, they said me it's not important what kind of move you make on the chessboard. It's important what kind of position you achieve after the 10 or 15 moves. So everyone can make failures, make errors. This is normal, but it's important to make it slowly, langsam, aber sicher. My granddad said me every time, because he was Austrian, and this is very important. And what I discovered very good in Germany, they work not very fast, but every move has their own place in the ecosystem. It means they try to make this energy as sorry, I lost the energy as most efficient as possible. That's why we start in Poland to promote. If you said the dojo code in Bratislava, there start another not formal group that try to teach people how to code, how to program. This is the important. The same we do in Poland. We try to promote the mathematics in the youngsters. We try to promote that to show them that they shouldn't work in ICT, but also they should supply ICT and treat ICT like something which can help them to achieve quite different things, like music, like art. I also have the friend of mine she's a sculptor. She produces the sculptures for the gaming company.
Okay, so it's related. Marcin, thank you very much for that. Education, you see, it's a recurrent theme here. It's actually critical for the future. Now, one important thing that we still have in the structure that we initially set here. So we said macro, micro. Now we are talking about cities and the importance of smart cities. But we also are actually talking about international cooperation. We've already tackled partially this topic related to getting talent here in Romania and using it for the kind of skills that we need. To what extent Romania can actually begin to be an attraction for talent in the region, in the overall region? Can we imagine ourselves as a country as an entrepreneurial destination for entrepreneurs that want to actually emerge in the ICT sector? Is that too much? Are we overly ambitious with this kind of goal? How do you see that, Andrei?
I don't know. I think that it's important that we're even asking these questions ourselves, and I think that because Romania is trying to create and to recreate this identity, let's say, to figure out what the identity is that will win over, let's say, more mature countries who have all the answers. And I think that it's good that we have a lot of questions, and I think that it's good that we're looking for answers. And this is what, I mean, there were like big civilizations. When they thought they knew everything, they disappeared. This is actually the secret of Europe and then of the Western civilization, that every time when they hit a certain level, we reinvented ourselves. The biggest problem is that we're still in Europe, where there are a lot of countries, a lot of answers, and a few countries with questions. And I think that it's important that the bigger, more mature countries understand the questions that we have, and I think this is the advantage that Romania has. It's nimble, it's fast, it can adapt, and I think that being a future hub is something that's very attainable, and the energy of people in this room, and I see a lot of them, is even the people in this room that I know could move the needle, globally.
Good. Excellent. I mean, this is a choice, actually, ladies and gentlemen. It is a choice as a model. We can actually keep servicing the overall global industry, or we can actually try to emerge as a hub, not necessarily national, but as a hub of entrepreneurial spirit and vocation. Now, how do you see, Christiana? You are actually connected with the future, with young people, with education. And how do you see, is that attainable? Can we rely also on attracting, like, Startup Chile, to have like a Startup Romania program where we actually, create the conditions for entrepreneurs from the entire region to work together with other talented people in Romania? Is that, from your perspective, attainable?
I think that being at the beginning of the journey, so startup in Romania is just a word used or very used in the last, let's say, 5 years. So being at the beginning of the journey, I think, and having talents, especially in ITNC, I think we are like we can be very interesting for others, especially for VCs, because they usually are the one organizing such incubators or accelerators program. I do wish we will have a national, let's say, or international startup competition. I think that if the law will also help us, like help the people under 30 or let's say entrepreneurs establish their own business with, I don't know, some taxes or special rules of the game, then yes, of course, I do feel that we are interesting for others to spend the money here. And I do believe that with a little bit help, we can do Romania startup world.
From our international guests of today, what is the perspective of Romania in the future as a hub, as a closing remark? Ralph, can you please address the audience?
An immediate suggestion I would make, particularly if you have any friends or know anyone who is developing mobile apps. There's a beautiful young lady there. She's developing mobile apps, hopefully. The good thing, well, a good thing for you to do is go to Google and look up the World Summit Awards and the European Youth Awards. This is a competition that's been running for the last 13 years. It's organized out of Salzburg in Austria. It's very important. 3,000 submissions from 170 countries. If you've got something good and you can enter it into this, it takes place in November in Graz in Austria, the European Youth Awards. That is a fantastic starting point. So at least you're getting into an international framework, because if you can get to be a prize winner at those awards, it's partly organized by the UN. It's really a very good fire starter for yourself. So the World Summit Awards, just look up, that'll give you the information.
Okay. Marcin, closing remarks? How do you
remarks. Joke. I think that the most important, that from my point of view, the biggest problem of our cooperation was that in EU, why? Because they divided us to two separate regions. So it meant for us that we had to work with the Germans, Slovaks also. But since 2 years, we start to cooperate with Bulgaria, with Smartcom, the nice communication company from the Sofia. Right now I'm in Bucharest, and I think that we start also the last year to new initiative. It's called V4ICT. It was based on the some agreement between among clusters from Visegrad Group countries. It's Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Hungary. But now we have the people and the organization from the Tunisia, Lebanon, Estonia who want to join. Why? Because they discovered that it's more comfortable to work with countries that are similar level, or they have the same problems that with strong countries like Germany, France, where for them very often we are only the sparring partners. So we don't want to be sparring partners, we want to be the partner and create the added value global competitive solutions. Amen.
Okay, thank you. Andrei.
Yeah, I wanted to say I see here a lot of young entrepreneurs, some of whom I know personally, and you know, the future of this country is obviously yours. I mean, be brave, and I think that there's no stopping you. Don't wait for government to do anything special for you. So take your you know, your fate in your own hands, and look for support to, let's say, maybe older entrepreneurs that might help you. We have a vested interest because those of us who chose to stay in Romania, we would like to live in a wealthy country, and you are the ones that can create this wealth for the generation to come. So good luck.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this was one packed hour with a lot of things to take away. It's about setting Romania's ambition. It's about the education, which is crucially important. It's about crafting skills if we don't have them now in order to, you know, jumpstart and shortcut a little bit to the future. It is my great pleasure to be here with Cristiana Bănățeanu, with Ralph Simon, Marcin Jabłoński, and Andrei Pitiș. And please join me in a round of applause for our distinguished guests. Thank you very much for the organizers. I apologize for Claudio to have named him differently at the beginning of the session, but this time, please, Claudio.
Yes, quick photograph.
Quick photograph, yeah, absolutely.
All of you.
Yeah. You can have the microphone from Cristiana. Okay.
Do you have questions for the panel?
Yep. Okay, here we have. No, Marcin, we still have the questions. So if you can.
I have one question. First of all, thank you very much for this very interesting discussion, and looking forward to the future now. I would have a question particularly for Mr. Simon. Do you see any correlation worldwide between digital innovation, IT&C innovation, and socioeconomic development of that microsystem, so to say? Thank you very much.
There's an absolutely definitive link between socio-economic development and the development of ICT and the creative industries, because remember, the creative industries is all about creative coding, creative art, creative design. The World Bank has got special books that you can get showing you that if you do this, you will see a rise in GDP. UNESCO, the UN, all have got examples.
Sorry. So more developed countries lead to more innovation, or less developed countries lead to more innovation? So not what comes afterwards, but if they are correlated in terms of the source of innovation.
I think in today's world, the source can be from anywhere, like I described earlier on about Nairobi and Kenya really being the pioneers of mobile money. There could be some kid in Cluj that has got some incredible idea. I mean, let's face it, where did WhatsApp come from? It came from Ukraine. Ukraine's a basket case country. Let's face it, that country, they're having a war, but I mean, the guy who created it came from Ukraine and got himself to Silicon Valley and fortunately managed to sell. He's now a multi-billionaire. So the question, in answer to your question, I think that the barriers are much, much lower than they have ever been before. If someone's got a great idea, you obviously need to have a genius to get it going, but the opportunity is there.
Mm-hmm.
We are in extra time, but we'll take one more question.
Yep.
I know for a fact that most unicorns companies are from US. But when you go and look into, I don't know, Fortune 100 or Fortune 500, most companies are from Europe. How you explain this?
Andrei?
Europe is the land of big corporations. The US is the land of startups that grow to 1 billion valuation. This is the divide. This is the big divide. This is something that, as I know, the European Union is looking into and to try to solve at the European level. So it's not, let's say, a Romanian problem that there are not a lot of startups. It's actually a European problem, and I think it's it's a little bit better in London than in other parts. But globally, the number of unicorns, which are like technology companies that are grow very fast to 1 billion in valuation, they fact of the matter is that they only appear in the US, and half of the job creation in the US is from startups, whereas and there's a lot of respect towards entrepreneurship in the US, whereas the biggest respect in most countries in Europe is towards big corporations. We all love big corporations here, and I think this is the kind of mentality that needs to change a little bit in order to at least try to compete with the US.
Mm-hmm. If anyone else would like to add on, okay. I just want to say that I remember that when I was actually graduating, the dream of every colleague of mine was to actually get hired at a multinational. Nowadays, it has changed a little, but still the steadiness of a job in a bank or a multinational still beats the eagerness to start up a business. And I think that this is part of the things that are happening. But it's changing, so that's actually the good news.
Thank you, Dragos, for this fresh panel.
Thank you very
It is
much.
my pleasure to invite you tomorrow